season than the work that we're doing at this time of year. You know, the physicality of the game needs to be practiced, right? The coordination of the game needs to be practiced, and you know, when you go against each other, the days are competitive. You know, and I thought, you know, I think both sides of the ball are doing good things. We're being smart about how we practice, because we gotta, you know, you gotta always negotiate the ground, which means stay off the ground. Anytime a player's on the ground in practice, that's a bad thing. Injuries could happen, along with the fact that that's not where you want to be to play football, right? Unless it's a, you know, a tackle or something. But good competitive stuff. We got a lot of new players out there, a lot of new faces, but I think they're all handling it well.
Adam, you want to
So
start?
I'll ask you, to answer your question.
Let's start with the quarterback competition. How are you kind of structuring that? Are you charting things daily? How do you plan to kind of compare them throughout
Right.
the game?
Yeah, so I call it quarterback development. You know, I think we'll develop, you know, a plan, who plays and when, once we get to the game. But right now, as we go through the installations, we demand that they all learn everything that we're doing. And I see good progress each day. You know, the way this thing works is, especially the first 8 days, you have really 8 installations. So as you can imagine, in the meeting room setting or the academic setting, you teach them something, they go out and practice it. All right, then the next day we teach them something new, and then they got to go back and review, because now the 2 installs apply to that practice, and then 3, and so on. And so it's a process. They're both very, very smart guys. Juju obviously is much younger, so this process is, you know, a little bit foreign to him. But Caden has got a lot of experience, and he's used to it, and I think they're both doing extremely well.
Go ahead.
Coach, back in the old days before NIL and transfer portals, the best players played. I mean, you saw in the field and they play. Do you have to factor in the ancillary things now associated with college football when deciding who plays and how much playing time and all that stuff?
That's a question for somebody other than me. So, you know, you have the business side of it, and then you have the teaching, gym teacher side of it, and that's where I'm on. I think we as coaches owe it to our fans, we owe it to our team, we owe it to everybody out there to play the very best players. Now, in reality, just in terms of the quarterback, both guys could be our very best players, right? And so then we'll work something out. But in the meantime, we just keep working with them, and those decisions will be made behind the scenes, and Coach will reveal all that.
Go ahead.
How's the running back room looking?
Good, good. I think a lot of new faces. Each guy is really a little bit different, you know, from down the sim, the DT, and some of the guys that were here last year. So, you know, we'll try to, ideally, we put them in there and do the things that they're best at. And because we have a room, I've always thought that with running backs. Even we had, you know, along the way, I've been fortunate to be around a lot of amazing running backs. Most recently, Saquon, when we drafted him. But no matter how good your starter is, you know, I sort of feel like it takes a village, right? We're going to have to. I think every team needs to use more than one back, so you got to develop them and hopefully get them on the field in a position where they do what they can do best.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, what have you seen from the offensive line, and more specifically, what schematically are you doing the same this year, and what are you trying to change?
Oh, we'll let all that reveal itself. In terms of the scheme, you know, the big thing with the offensive line, a lot of new faces, right? You could say our most productive offensive lineman last year was Jordan Seaton, and he was a true freshman. Really, the other 4 guys are gone. So, you know, you might be saying, yikes, what are we going to do? But fortunately, our personnel people brought in a lot of really terrific players, plus some guys that weren't starters last year that have made huge improvements. I like where we're going. In terms of developing them, you know, it all starts up front. I mean, that really is not cliche. That's really the way it works. And no matter how many tight ends we put in the core or how many wideouts, we need physicality, right? We need physicality and buy-in and play hard together from all 5 of those guys. And we feel like, I've always felt like, and in our case, better Buffaloes make better players. And I feel like we've brought in some guys that I feel like are better people and better players, and they're quickly starting to gel. I give credit. I want to give credit all along here to our staff. I think we have a really good staff. We have some new guys that are going to help, new coaches on our staff. But just like the players, you know, when you're working together in another year, you get more used to each other. You know, I might say something that's one word that now means more to the staff, and then I can read their body language, and you know, and so it gets kind of told to the players in a way that's more seamless. And so, you know, I think that synergy is a great word, right? I don't even know how you define it, but we all know what it means, right? I think our synergy is better than it was a year ago.
Ryan, go ahead.
With Caden and Juju having different skill sets, how did that impact kind of building and installing this offense?
Well, we do what, just like with the quarterbacks, we try to do the things that they do well, right, on a consistent basis. And so that's the challenge, to try to develop a package for both of those guys, and then, you know, make it seamless. So, you know, when we get it, you know, I get it called, you know, they can go out and execute. So I don't think it's a challenge. You know, I think I'm in love with plays that work well. So, you know, when you have a running quarterback, you know, you study and you learn, and you know, we all have kind of ideas of how, you know, types of plays, and then you just make them part of your own. You know, I think we all are coordinators, right? Somebody was saying last year, we were talking about, what, remind me,
Evolve and refine.
Evolve and refine, right? Let's go back to that. And I think all offenses do that, right? And that's why what's fun for us as coaches to watch things and ideas and try to, you know, make them your own, and someday say, well, you know, I was the first one to do that, when that we're all lying. You know, curl flat was one of the first concepts, so, you know, everybody runs curl flat and 4 verticals. Nobody can claim that as their own.
Coach, I was going to ask you about your off-season process and what that looks like, kind of building off that. You go through spring ball, you've got all these new pieces coming in. How do you look at things and maybe put a plan together?
Well, first off, you always look at what you did a year ago, right? There's the process of the system. So you're constantly looking at what you're doing, and we do it throughout the season, right? And if we run a concept that doesn't work, you put it on the shelf, and you keep working on the things you do well, and then you try to find new ideas, and they always go into a new plan. In the off season, and this is one of the only things I like about the off season, I can sit in my office and watch every 4th and 1. Right, with a cup of coffee, and jot down the ideas that worked. Can do it, and I can watch it, you know, from the NFL, from college ball and whatnot. You can always watch every 3rd down, all the 2-point plays, and so you just start looking at things, and then trends start to develop, and you just build a foundation in your brain, and then you look at your team and you say, okay, that's a really good play, but that doesn't fit our style or our roster, and so then you do something else, and so you just study it. And then you write them down into an installation, and then you teach them and practice it. So,
Jake, sorry.
I was going to say, coming off of that, how do you put a playbook together?
just like that. Then I got really sharp people that know how to draw all this stuff up, and then they do it. And we get pictures, we put them in the book or shine them up on the wall, and everybody learns it, and you go off.
Jake, go ahead.
Coach, what have you seen from Omari Miller so far?
Yeah.
And how has he grown over the last year since that injury against K-State?
Yeah, no, the injury set him back a year ago. I mean, we had really, really high hopes for him a year ago. He's a dynamic, explosive player, and it showed up, right? I mean, showed up in his first game against USC where he burst on the scene. Became a household name after going the distance twice, which is great. But, he's grown up, I think. I mean, he's a really, really dynamic player. I mean, he's got a super bright future. But just like all of these guys, and that's why these are young men to begin with. My gosh. I mean, Juju's 17, right? 17 years old. I think back to when I was 17. I would have had no chance to play in a college game. Same with, Omarion, right? Yeah, he was young. And this isn't an easy process that we put them through to develop, to get themselves ready to play. And he's handled it great. I mean, I see a totally different man in Omarion now than I saw 2 years ago when I got here. And I think that's going to help him.
Go ahead, Neely. General?
What's going on, Doctor?
Your head coach throughout the spring, even at Big 12 Media Day, and yourself, frankly, have made no secret that we got to run the ball. You've now had an offseason with Marshall Faulk in your room. What has that process been like, and what has he brought to the table for you?
Yeah, I mean, Marshall obviously is, one of the smartest players to play the game. Had great impact as a player, and he's had, he lends really good perspective to the running back room. And with regard to running the ball, it starts with, the running backs got to do a good job running their pass, which, we'll develop some different types of runs, but the guys up front got to block as well. So it's all coordinated. And then we got to take care of the shenanigans on the edges so that when there's too many of in there, we take advantage of the speed and the space that the defense might provide. But it's all coordinated. When you have really experienced, outstanding coaches, you have players that are eager to learn, right? And I feel like we're going to do some smart things. It'll all come together. We keep talking about running the ball, and I think it's extremely important. Because really any play you call, you want to make yards. Right, so we want to call runs and make yards, and then when you call passes, you want to complete passes and advance the ball, and so it's all coordinated. And I feel like we're better suited, I think, this year to have a better running game, and we'll see how it reveals itself.
Brian, go ahead.
Coach, I know it's a two-man competition, seems like, for quarterback, but Ryan's been your number 2 for 2 years now. And where is his
Stauber? Yeah, no, let's not sleep on Ryan. I think Ryan, if you get to know Ryan, he'll quickly become one of your favorite people, right? So when I'm in the meeting room and I say, what kind of read is this? And he'll be the first one to say, pick a side, or, how do I read this one? And he'll say, it's a post alert flat defender read, or, it's sweep the board. And so he's really fun to be around, right? He's got a great vibe and a great personality. And given the opportunity to play, I think he's going to play well. So I don't really worry about where he's stacked. I'm just super thrilled he's in our room.
Just as a follow-up, it sounds like you feel like you've got 3 guys you would trust to put out there.
Oh, I do. And, and that's where the maturity level for Ryan comes in, right? So he's sitting here last year behind Juju, right? And then all of a sudden we create this thing in front of him this year that's different, right? But, we had a discussion in the offseason. He says, Coach Pat, he said, I love it here. He said, I feel like I'm learning something new every day, being around our quarterback room. And he said, I just want to keep rolling with this, which, that's unique now. We talked about the NIL world, right? That's unique. And so for him to feel that way, I think we should feel blessed that he's here.
Jack, go ahead.
Draylen Miller, just how excited are you to watch his sophomore year, and how big is his versatility kind of in the offense?
Yeah, no, he's doing good. He just seems more comfortable, right? When you're going through this process as a rookie or a freshman or like 17, 18-year-old, it can be overwhelming, and he was able to handle it. Like when you bring in young players and they get out there and perform, and you say, wow, he's a young man, but I say this to myself all the time, this stage is not too big for him. And he showed us right away that it wasn't too big for him. And so he'll be able to build on what he did last year in just a more mature approach. And I think that's the beauty of development, which that's another word nobody wants to talk about anymore, right? Because they cut and run, but players that play, as they develop, they'll perform better and better. And I think we all got to develop. We all got to develop as people every day. And I think a lot of our players are here because they feel like they're being developed, and they're going to be able to show that.
Scott, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, you guys didn't use a lot of pre-snap motion last year, but it was a big part of what Caden's offense at Liberty did the last couple of years. How much of the stuff like that he had a lot of success with do you want to kind of implement or carry over to this year?
Yeah, I think we blended in. I don't think it's because he did it in his offense. Last year, let's just call it for what it was, right? We struggled up front, right? And we had 4 wideouts that are now on NFL rosters, right? And so get them lined up, let's go, right? Now, that's one way to approach it, right? And we were able to, throw for a lot of yards and help us win 9 games. For us to win more than 9, we got to do more things, I think. And that's where, whether it's using more personnel groupings, we've developed a tight end room, right? Or doing more things, we'll just see how that reveals itself.
I guess just a follow-up to the tight end room, like Zach Atkins, and some guys like Charlie Williams. What have you seen from the development of that position?
Yeah, they've done a good job developing. I think Brett does a great job with them. And I think just like receiver coaches do a great job, with their guys and the O-line coach. but you see their development, right? And then every day we involve them, you know, in the plan out here. Every practice is like a new game plan that builds on itself. And so, like they're showing up and they're doing what they're supposed to do. Everybody in offense got a block, unless you're the quarterback. And if you're a skilled player and you're fortunate enough for us to throw you the ball, you got to catch it and run with it. And I think those guys are doing a good job.
All right, thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Thank you.